The wind swept dry leaves across the cracked gravel driveway as Logan Hart stepped out of his rusted pickup, boots crunching on the stone path. The February air bit sharp, the kind that crept past jackets and sat on bones. He looked up at the mansion, a hulking, pale stone structure squatting at the edge of the woods, wrapped in silence thick enough to press on the chest. It was the kind of house stories gathered dust in. Next to him, Gage didn't move. The German shepherd, once fearless in combat zones from Fallujah to Ramadi, stood frozen. Not alert, not curious, just still. His ears were angled back slightly, his tail lowered but not tucked. A veteran's stillness, the kind that said, "Something's wrong here." "Come on, buddy," Logan said under his breath. But Gage took a step back. That was new. Gage never backed away. Logan followed the dog's gaze to the front doors, tall oak slabs faded to grey, with iron handles that looked too ornate for this part of Missouri. The county had listed it as abandoned, seized after decades of unpaid taxes, auctioned for the legal minimum. 50 cents. That's what it cost Logan to own the place. 50 cents and the quiet belief that he could outpace his past with a roof and 4 walls. But Gage wasn't buying it. The dog's stance remained stiff, his front paw slightly raised. Logan had seen that once before, outside a compound where 2 tripwires had been buried just beneath the surface. Gage had stopped him then, and saved his life. He dropped his duffel just inside the doorway and knelt beside the dog. "What is it, huh? What do you smell?" Gage didn't respond, just stared. Logan rose slowly and took a step onto the porch. The wood moaned beneath his boots. The air here felt thick with disuse, but not decay. Not the kind of rot that sagged floors and peeled wallpaper. No, this house had been cared for. Then stopped. Suddenly. He glanced back at Gage, who remained by the truck, unmoving. Logan jiggled the brass key from the envelope the county clerk had taped shut with a smile too thin to be real. The lock turned easier than it should have. The door opened with a whisper. Inside, the air was stale but dry. Dust floated in soft columns where sunlight pierced through half-closed shutters. The foyer opened wide to a curved staircase. A banister gleamed faintly beneath the dust, as if someone had touched it. Recently. He stepped back to the porch. Gage was pacing now. Slow, tight circles. Not agitated, but calculating. Logan whistled once, sharp. "Gage, let's go." The shepherd hesitated, then padded forward with reluctant steps. At the threshold he paused. His nose twitched. One paw hovered, but he entered. The floor groaned beneath them as Logan led the way through the foyer. Gage sniffed along the baseboards, every few seconds pausing to look back. The house felt still, but not empty. Logan didn't say it aloud, but he felt it too. The living room had a wide fireplace framed by pale stone matching the exterior. A stack of unburnt firewood sat neatly to the side, too neatly. Logan frowned. That kind of symmetry didn't come from old tenants. That came from someone still caring. The kitchen looked like it had been untouched since 1975. Harvest gold appliances, linoleum curling at the corners. But the fridge had been unplugged deliberately. The calendar on the door was from 2006. Someone had lived here long after the county claimed it was abandoned. Gage froze near the back hallway. His body stiffened. Then, for the first time since stepping inside, he growled. Low, controlled, not fear, warning. Logan stopped cold. His hand instinctively dropped toward his belt, where no sidearm hung anymore. Gage's nose pressed against the floor. He sniffed once, twice, then his head snapped up toward a wall, plain plaster, no window, no outlet, just empty space, except it wasn't. Gage stepped closer, nose working furiously. Then he pawed at the baseboard. Hard. A scraping sound echoed, plaster over hollow. "Hey," Logan whispered. "You find something?" The dog whined and scratched again. Logan knelt, ran his fingers along the molding. At one spot the paint felt different, thinner. He knocked. The echo came back shallow, a hidden space. He stood and retrieved the crowbar from the truck. Gage sat beside him as he pried. The plaster cracked, flaked, and finally gave. Behind it, a seam, a door, no knob, just a sliver of shadow. He wedged the bar again. The panel groaned and shifted. Cold air rushed out, dry and still. Logan shone a flashlight inside. Stairs, leading down. Basements didn't scare Logan. He'd slept in worse, but this one felt different. He turned to Gage. The dog's hackles were raised, but his body stayed forward. Logan descended. The steps creaked, but held. The light cut through dust motes, revealing a space too finished to be just a cellar. Filing cabinets, shelves, boxes, a desk. On the desk sat a single lamp. Unplugged. But the bulb was intact. On a hook above the desk hung a wool jacket. Military issue. Logan's breath caught. It wasn't his. It wasn't his father's either. But the name stitched inside the collar made his stomach drop. H.C. Bradley Mayor Harold C. Bradley, the same man who had vanished 7 years ago without a trace, declared missing, presumed dead. Funeral held, case closed. But this jacket, this setup, this was no hiding place. This was a command post. Gage barked once, sharp and alert. Logan turned on instinct. From upstairs the front door creaked shut. They were no longer alone. The second night in the stone mansion was colder than the first. Logan Hart stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, heating water on the old gas stove with a lighter he hadn't used since Afghanistan. The pilot light was out. Of course it was. Everything about this place demanded effort. Manual, deliberate, watchful. From the living room came the soft clink of metal against ceramic. Gage was nudging his water bowl again. Not impatient, just reaffirming his presence. Logan poured hot water into a chipped mug and dropped in a tea bag that looked older than the house. They had seen worse, the two of them. Logan stepped into the living room and sat on the sleeping bag spread across the stone floor. Gage lay a few feet away, body curled tight, nose resting on his front paw, but his eyes were open. Watching. Always watching. Logan looked down at his own hands. The calluses had faded a little since discharge, but the tremor in his pinky hadn't. It would never go away. His mind drifted back to the base at Al-Taqadum, then Fallujah. He remembered the blinding heat, the smell of cordite, the sound of Gage's bark cutting through mortar sirens. He reached out and scratched the shepherd's ear. "You kept me breathing more nights than I can count," he said softly. Gage gave a small huff through his nose, a dog's exhale that sounded just enough like agreement. Logan didn't talk much. Not to people. Hadn't since the discharge. Civilians didn't want the truth. Not really. They wanted clean endings, and words like hero and closure. Things that didn't exist outside of TV. What they had, Logan and Gage, wasn't pretty. It was precise, real, efficient. They'd survived 2 IEDs, an ambush outside Ramadi, and that long, filthy convoy north where 3 Humvees got stuck and 2 didn't come back. Gage had smelled something under the 3rd vehicle. Logan hadn't even registered the scent. But Gage had frozen, teeth bared, ears stiff. They cleared the convoy, saved 6 lives that day. Maybe more. They'd been paired late in Logan's last deployment. Most handlers got the dog that matched their energy. Logan was too quiet, too internal. The Corps gave him a dog that didn't bark without cause. They became one shadow. But war ends in paperwork. Logan came home with a scar on his shoulder and a file marked PTSD, non-disqualifying. The dog came with him. Retired. technically unfit for service. But Logan knew better. So did Gage. Back in his hometown of Briar Hollow, Missouri, Logan hadn't expected to find much. His mother had passed 5 years earlier. No siblings. A few scattered cousins, none worth chasing down. He wanted stillness. Instead, he found a stone house that cost less than a sandwich. The clerk at the county office had raised her eyebrows. 50 cents? You sure? Logan had nodded once. No one had lived there in decades, or so the file claimed. No taxes paid, no heirs stepped forward, no trespassing reports. Just quiet. Logan liked quiet. He thought Gage would too. But something about the house made Gage uneasy. Even now, the dog's eyes never stayed in one place for long. He tracked shadows. He watched the staircase, the back hallway, the front door. Always calculating. Logan set his mug down and grabbed a fleece blanket, tossing it over Gage. The dog didn't resist. He never did. But his ears stayed up. His eyes flicked back to the hall where they'd discovered the hidden panel earlier. Neither of them had forgotten what they saw. The filing cabinets, the jacket with the embroidered initials, the name of a man who was supposed to be dead. Logan didn't believe in ghosts, but he did believe in secrets. The next morning, Logan went into town for supplies. The general store had been remodeled, but the cashier still looked like he'd been born behind the register. A few customers glanced up when Logan entered. One man nodded slowly. Another woman stared too long at Gage. The shepherd's tail hung low but calm, his steps smooth, precise. He scanned every aisle before Logan did. And when a cart squeaked too close, Gage stepped between Logan and the noise. Always watching. At the register, the cashier scanned items without speaking. Finally, he asked, "You the one bought the bone place?" Logan nodded. "Name's Hart." The man squinted. "Ain't been anyone out there since the mayor went missing. You know that?" Logan said nothing. "You got a dog like that, maybe you'll last longer." Back at the house, Logan unloaded the supplies into dusty cabinets. He restocked Gage's food, poured fresh water, and set up a second sleeping roll near the fireplace. He didn't plan on sleeping up in the bedrooms. Not yet. That evening, he noticed something strange. The jacket they found in the basement, the one with Mayor Bradley's initials, was gone. Logan stood in the hidden chamber, the beam from his flashlight dancing across the desk, the floor, the walls. Nothing disturbed, no footprints, no fingerprints, just the absence of what had been there. Gage stood at the top of the stairs. His ears were rigid, his mouth opened slightly. He was panting now, short and sharp. Logan moved up the stairs, closing the panel behind him. Someone had been in the house. He didn't say it aloud. Didn't have to. Gage pressed close against his leg, eyes trained on the front door. The lock hadn't been forced. There were no broken windows. But the house felt different now. It wasn't just unsettling. It was occupied. Logan stood in the living room, heart pounding with a dull, steady rhythm. Outside, the wind picked up again. Inside, Gage began to growl. Low and sustained. Not warning this time. Recognition. The third day brought a rare stretch of sunlight that filtered through the narrow windows and cast long, fractured beams across the dusty floors. Logan spent most of the morning cleaning out the pantry, sorting through half-rotted shelves and spider webs thick enough to make a man rethink his appetite. Gage lay nearby, head on his paws, eyes half closed, but never quite resting. Logan kept one ear tuned to the dog, always. Some habits don't die, especially the ones that saved your life more than once. By noon, the house had grown too quiet again. The kind of quiet that wasn't peace, just the absence of something you hadn't heard yet. Logan stood in the foyer, staring, up the staircase. The second floor still made him uneasy, but that wasn't the plan today. He grabbed a rag and a bucket, whistled low to Gage. "Come on, partner. Let's clear out that back hallway." Gage rose without hesitation. Not obedient, committed. He stayed a half step behind Logan as they moved past the kitchen into the darker part of the house. The hall was narrow, with faded wallpaper that peeled at the corners. Water damage crept along the ceiling. They reached a blank wall at the end, a dead end between two shallow closets. Logan remembered thinking it looked odd the first night, but dismissed it. Old houses had quirks, crooked framing, dead spaces, nothing to worry about. He bent to pry open a lower cabinet door when he heard it. A growl, not loud, not feral, but deep, sustained. Logan turned. Gage stood perfectly still in the hallway, his body rigid, his ears pinned forward, his gaze locked on the flat plaster wall ahead. Logan straightened. "What is it?" Gage didn't move. Then, without warning, he lunged forward and barked. Once. Sharp. It echoed down the hallway like a warning shot. Logan instinctively took a step back, hand brushing his hip where a weapon used to sit. Gage barked again, louder this time, and began pawing at the wall. His claws scratched against the plaster, fierce and frenzied. "Whoa! Hey!" Logan stepped forward. "Easy." But Gage wasn't panicking. He was working. Every motion was deliberate. Right paw, left paw, scratch, sniff, bark. His nose slammed into the base of the wall again and again, then pressed hard as if trying to inhale something buried just out of reach. The plaster flaked. Dust hung in the air. Logan grabbed his arm and pulled him gently back. "Gage, stop. There's nothing there." But Gage pulled forward, resisting slightly, eyes still locked on the same blank stretch of wall. "It's probably a squirrel or mold," Logan said, trying to convince himself more than the dog. "Maybe it's just bad wiring. I'll check it later." But Gage wouldn't let it go. Logan knelt beside him, ran his hand along the wall. Nothing obvious. No seams, no air draft. But the paint. It looked a shade different than the rest of the hallway. Slightly newer, cleaner. He pressed his ear to the wall. Nothing. Still, Gage stood tense, tail out straight, nose trembling like a compass needle caught in a storm. "You think there's something back there?" Logan murmured. Gage blinked, as if acknowledging the obvious. Logan stood, dusted off his knees, and walked back into the kitchen to grab his flashlight. He came back and swept the beam across the wall, looking for cracks, for any signs of patchwork. Then he saw it. A thin line near the baseboard, almost imperceptible, running vertical from floor to waist height. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his multi-tool, and scraped gently. A sliver of paint peeled away, revealing a shallow groove in the plaster. A hidden panel. His pulse quickened. Gage sat now, tail thumping once, but his body still leaned forward. Not aggressive, just waiting. Logan worked slowly, scraping away more of the wall until his fingers found the edge of a recessed latch. No keyhole, just pressure. He pushed. The panel groaned, then gave. A gap opened, narrow, barely wide enough for a man to slide through. Cold air spilled out. Gage barked again, this time not sharp, but urgent. It wasn't alarm, it was insistence. Something was inside. Logan shone the flashlight into the opening. Stairs again. Leading down. Different from the basement they'd found behind the fake closet. These steps were narrower, less finished. Dirt floor at the bottom. He glanced at Gage. The shepherd didn't wait. He moved forward, nose low, posture fluid. Logan followed, the flashlight beam dancing across wood and stone. They reached the bottom. The room was small, damp. A single bulb hung from a cord in the ceiling. When Logan flipped the switch, nothing happened. Dead power. No surprise. In the center sat a wooden box. Logan stepped forward. The box was old, handmade, reinforced with iron strips. He brushed the dust away and found a name carved into the top. C.D. Bradley, not the mayor, his son. Logan's breath caught. The Bradley family had vanished from public life after the mayor's disappearance. No follow-up, no lawsuits, just vanished. He opened the box. Inside were papers, dozens. Old letters, folded deeds, grainy photographs. One showed a young boy standing next to the stone mansion's fireplace, the same fireplace Logan had been sleeping near. Gage circled the room once, then came to sit beside Logan. He placed one paw on the man's boot. Logan picked up one letter, unfolded it. The ink was faded, but the words were legible. "They'll come for it. If you're reading this, we never made it out. Don't trust the town, don't trust the bank, and don't let them take the house." Logan looked down at Gage. The dog stared back, quiet, calm. "You brought me here." Logan whispered. Gage didn't move. Logan looked around the room again. The box, the files, the hidden steps. Then he looked back up the stairs, heart pounding now with a new certainty. They hadn't bought an abandoned house. They'd walked into a buried story. And Gage had found the first page. The night settled heavy over the stone mansion, wrapping it in a silence that didn't feel natural. It was a quiet that listened back. Logan lay on his cot near the fireplace, one arm slung over his eyes, trying to will his mind to stop circling. The hidden room, the letters, the name carved into that box, the words that still replayed, hauntingly deliberate. "Don't trust the town. Don't let them take the house." Beside him, Gage lay stretched out on the rug, chest rising and falling in slow, steady rhythm. His tail twitched once, a soft flick, but his eyes remained open. Watching. Always watching. Outside, wind skimmed across the fields, brushing against the porch railing with a low whistle. Inside, the fire popped, throwing brief flickers of gold across the walls. Logan had been awake for hours, though exhaustion weighed on him. Every time he started to drift, a sound would pull him back. A floorboard settling, a faint creak in the pipes, or sometimes just nothing, an emptiness that somehow had texture. Then Gage growled, low, deep, not loud but unmistakable. Logan's eyes opened. The dog's head was up, ears forward, gaze fixed toward the dark hallway that led to the staircase. "Easy," Logan whispered, rubbing sleep from his face. But Gage didn't ease. His whole body was locked, muscles coiled tight. The growl deepened, vibrating through the air like distant thunder. Logan pushed himself upright. "You hear something?" Gage's eyes didn't move from the hall. The growl turned into a soft rumble. Then he rose, one paw forward, deliberate. He stood facing the staircase, the fur along his shoulders raised like wire. "Hey," Logan said again, sharper this time. "Enough." The shepherd didn't flinch. He barked once, loud, sharp, the sound slicing through the quiet like a shot. Logan winced and stood up fast. "Gage, stop it!" But Gage barked again, then growled, low and warning, staring at the staircase landing. Logan shined the flashlight that lay near his cot. The beam cut through the dark. Nothing there, just the worn steps, a crooked banister, a layer of dust that shimmered faintly. "See," Logan said, voice tired. "It's nothing." Gage's body didn't agree. He took a slow step forward, nose lifted, scenting the air. A low whine left his throat, the kind that wasn't fear or confusion but frustration. Logan pinched the bridge of his nose. The days of sleeplessness, of old memories clawing their way back, were taking their toll. He wasn't in Iraq anymore. There were no insurgents here, no traps, no unseen eyes watching from rooftops. This was Missouri. This was supposed to be the place where things finally got quiet. but Gage wasn't letting it go. The dog barked again, short, insistent, and it was like something inside Logan cracked. "Enough!" His voice echoed through the stone hallways, harsher than he meant it to be. "There's nothing there, you hear me? Nothing!" Gage froze, mid-step. The silence that followed felt wrong, heavy. Logan's breath came fast, chest tight. He dropped the flashlight, ran a hand through his hair, and turned away. "Jesus, you're driving me insane, you know that?" Gage didn't move, didn't bark again, just stood there, staring up at him with those steady amber eyes that somehow made the anger dissolve into guilt before it even finished burning. Logan turned his back. "It's the house," he muttered to himself. "It's old. It makes noises. You're on edge. I'm on edge. We'll fix the wiring. Get some damn sleep." But his voice didn't convince the air, and it sure didn't convince Gage. He went back to the cot, dropped into it, and stared at the ceiling. After a moment, he heard Gage's nails click against the floorboards, slow, uncertain. Then the sound stopped halfway between the hall and the cot. The dog didn't lie down beside him that night. He stayed near the hall, sitting upright, his body a sentry against whatever his instincts warned him of. Logan tried not to notice, but around 3 a.m, he woke again. This time, not because of Gage's growl, but because the house itself seemed to exhale. A soft sound, almost like a sigh, drifted from upstairs. Faint, human, gone as quickly as it came. He sat up slowly, listening. Gage was already standing, nose angled toward the ceiling. Their eyes met across the dim room. The shepherd didn't bark. He didn't move. Just stared at Logan as if waiting for him to understand. But Logan couldn't. Or wouldn't. He reached for the flashlight again, shined it up the staircase. The beam caught something, a subtle movement, a shadow shifting along the landing. Then gone. He blinked, heart hammering. Probably a reflection. He whispered to no one. Gage's tail was stiff, body trembling with quiet focus. The dog's breathing grew faster, nostrils flaring as he pressed forward toward the first step. Logan put a hand out, stopping him. "Stay." The command came reflexively, a habit from service. Gage froze, obedient but unwilling. His ears flicked back slightly, and he let out a soft, wounded sound, a protest muffled by duty. Logan felt the guilt sink deeper. His voice softened. "Tomorrow, okay? We'll check it in daylight." But Gage didn't look away from the stairs. The following morning, Logan found deep scratch marks along the wooden floor near the base of the staircase. Not from Gage. The angles were wrong. Too deep, too old. Like someone, or something, had clawed its way down, years before. He stared at them for a long time, running his fingers along the grooves. Then he looked back at Gage, who stood silently in the doorway, eyes calm but unwavering. "I was wrong last night," Logan said quietly. Gage tilted his head slightly, as if to say he already knew. Logan straightened, glancing back toward the stairs. The air in the house had changed again. It wasn't the same stillness as before. It was charged, waiting. And this time, even Logan couldn't pretend he didn't feel it. The morning came grey and heavy, the kind of sky that looked carved from stone. Logan brewed coffee on the old gas stove, its hiss breaking the quiet. He hadn't spoken a word since dawn. Across the room, Gage paced the same stretch of floorboards, nose twitching, ears flicking toward the staircase again and again. "You're not letting that go, huh?" Logan said quietly. The shepherd stopped pacing and looked at him, head tilted, eyes unblinking. There was something deliberate in his stare, the same unspoken insistence that had once led Logan through smoke and rubble in a foreign desert. He sighed, set the coffee down, and grabbed the flashlight. "All right, show me." Gage turned immediately, trotting toward the hallway that led to the staircase. His nails clicked against the wood, the sound measured and steady. At the base of the stairs, he paused, nose working furiously against the wall that bordered the landing. Logan frowned. "That wall again?" he muttered. The dog sniffed, then scratched once, twice, at a specific spot near the floorboards. Logan crouched, ran his palm along the baseboard, then pressed gently. The wood flexed, just slightly. There was space behind it. He pulled out his multi-tool and wedged it beneath the molding. With a soft crack, the panel shifted, revealing a narrow gap. Cold air spilled out. Gage's tail stiffened. He stepped back but didn't look away. Logan aimed his flashlight inside. The beam disappeared into darkness that swallowed the light whole. "You found another one," he said, his voice low. "All right, let's see what you're so set on." He pried the panel wider, enough for him to slide through. Gage followed without hesitation. The passage was tight, walls rough with old plaster, the air thick and cold. At the end of the corridor, a wooden door waited, plain, no handle. Only a brass hinge glinted faintly under the light. Logan pressed his shoulder against it. The door gave with a reluctant groan, opening into a space larger than he expected. The air smelled like paper and time. Rows of metal filing cabinets lined the walls, rusted but intact. Stacks of boxes sat on long tables, each marked with faded labels. County records, 1978, 1982. "What the hell?" Logan whispered. He stepped inside. The beam of his flashlight swept across the nearest cabinet. Each drawer was filled with manila folders, typed letters, official seals. He picked one up. It was a property deed, handwritten, dated decades ago. He read the first name that caught his eye. Miles Hart. His breath caught. His father's name. Gage pressed close, his nose brushing Logan's wrist. Logan opened the folder. Inside were maps, survey sketches of the very land the stone mansion sat on. But the signatures didn't match the county records he'd seen before. The ink bled in places. But one name appeared over and over again. Approved by Mayor Harold C. Bradley. The same name stitched inside the jacket that had vanished. Logan flipped through the pages faster now, his pulse quickening. There were letters between Bradley and several county officials. The language was clinical, but the meaning was clear. Land bought low, reassigned, and sold to shell companies. Entire parcels erased from record. Dozens of families displaced. And near the bottom of the stack, an old black and white photograph. Logan froze. In it, 3 men stood beside a pickup truck, the stone mansion faintly visible in the background. One of them was his father, younger, smiling slightly, holding a folder under one arm. Beside him a man in a dark coat, Mayor Bradley. The third man, half turned from the camera, looked familiar in a way that made Logan's stomach twist. He flipped the photo over. A note scrawled in fading ink. "Survey meeting, March 1979. Do not file." Logan read it twice, then looked at Gage. The shepherd's ears were flat now, his posture tense. He stepped toward the far corner of the room, sniffed once, then began pawing at the ground. "What is it?" Logan asked. Gage barked, a single sharp sound, and kept digging. Dust rose in clouds. Logan knelt and brushed aside loose debris. Beneath a thin layer of dirt, his fingers struck metal. He cleared it gently until a small tin box appeared, dented but sealed. He pried it open. Inside lay a handful of photographs, brittle with age. The first was of his father again, standing by a county truck, a survey map pinned to the side. The next showed him shaking hands with a man whose face had been violently crossed out with a black marker. The third photograph made Logan's hands tremble. It showed the same man lying face down near a construction site, half covered by dirt. The back read only, "He knew." Logan's throat went dry. Dad. He sat back against the wall, the weight of years pressing on him. His father hadn't just been a missing employee. He'd been part of something that had turned deadly. The accident everyone spoke about, the one that supposedly sent his father's truck off the river road, it wasn't random. It was erasure. Gage nudged the tin box with his nose, his gaze steady. "You're telling me he left this here?" Logan whispered. He hid it before they got to him. The dog pressed closer, resting his head against Logan's arm, as if confirming what words couldn't. Logan looked around the room again. Each drawer, each file, each dusty box represented a truth buried deeper than the foundation above them. Someone had built the house to protect these records or to hide them forever. He flipped through one more folder. At the bottom was an unsigned report typed on yellowed paper. County employee Miles Hart filed complaint regarding fraudulent land deeds. Investigation pending. Pending. That was the last line. No resolution, no closure. Logan stood slowly, the box in his hand. His flashlight beam brushed over something on the opposite wall, a small corkboard covered in pinned notes and photos. Most were yellowed, curling at the edges. But one was newer, printed on crisp white paper. It was a photograph of him, taken weeks ago, standing outside the county annex, holding the keys to the mansion. The blood drained from his face. He turned sharply, listening. The house above them creaked once, deliberate. Gage's ears pricked. He lifted his head, growling low. Logan killed the flashlight. The dark swallowed them whole. They waited, breath held, as faint footsteps moved across the floor above. Slow, calculated. Not wind. Not the house, settling. Someone walking. Gage pressed against Logan's leg, silent now, his breathing steady but shallow. Logan didn't move. He counted the steps until they stopped, right above where he stood. Then the sound of metal scraping wood echoed from the front door. A lock turning, the door closing. Silence. Only then did Gage shift, exhaling softly. Logan turned the flashlight back on and looked at him. "You were right," he whispered. "You always are." The shepherd blinked once, calm and sure, as if to remind him that truth was rarely quiet, but it was always loyal enough to find its way home. By the time Logan stepped out of the courthouse annex for the second time, the chill in the air had turned raw. His fingers tightened around the file in his hands, knuckles white beneath the strain. He hadn't said a word on the way in. He didn't say one on the way out. Gage trotted at his side, steady, silent, ears scanning every sound. The shepherd moved like smoke, just close enough to be protection, just far enough to stay alert. The clerk's words still rang in Logan's ears. "We don't process those kinds of records here anymore. You'll need to contact the county attorney." And then, lower, with a look over her shoulder, "But I wouldn't waste your time." He had caught the message between the lines. Someone wanted this buried. Still. Back at the truck, Logan opened the passenger door, and Gage hopped up without hesitation. The dog curled against the seat, but his eyes never left the window. His job wasn't over. Logan slid behind the wheel, jaw tight. He started the engine, then reached into the glove box and pulled out a folded worn piece of newspaper. The byline at the top read, "Elise Monroe, Independent Reporter." Below it, a headline from 4 years ago, "County Commissioner resigns amid misuse of public funds allegation." It was the only article that had ever named Mayor Bradley directly. Logan stared at it for a long moment, then started driving. He found Elise Monroe in a rented office above an antique shop in the next town over. The door creaked when he pushed it open. She looked up from a cluttered desk, eyebrows already rising. "You don't look like a town historian," she said. "I'm not. And yet you're holding a manila folder like it's a loaded weapon." "I think it is," Logan said, and stepped inside. Elise had a journalist's eyes, sharp, constantly moving, not missing a thing. She noticed Gage immediately. "Your dog always come with you on interviews? He's not here for show." Gage sat by the door, ears forward, eyes locked on the window, his body calm, but not relaxed. Logan set the folder on her desk and opened it. Photographs, letters, maps, pieces of a puzzle that had gone ignored too long. She flipped through the first few pages and then stopped, her fingers pausing on a land deed. Her expression darkened. "Where did you get these?" "Hidden basement under the Bradley house." Elise sat back, processing. "You're telling me this is the real Bone Estate file, the original records?" Logan nodded. She tapped a photo of his father, Miles Hart, standing near the mansion's boundary fence. "I remember this face," she said softly. "He filed a whistleblower claim the year before he'd disappeared. The case vanished too." Logan didn't answer. Gage stood, tail lifting slightly, his head tilted, eyes now focused on the far corner of the room. Elise followed his gaze. "What's he doing?" "He hears something," Logan said. "He always hears it first." Gage padded to the wall and let out a single, sharp bark. Then he turned to Logan, waiting. "We should go," Logan said immediately. "Now." They moved fast, Gage leading, Elise asking questions that Logan didn't have time to answer. Outside, a black sedan had parked 2 buildings down. The windows were tinted too dark for small-town norms. Gage growled low, tail stiff. "That's not local," Elise muttered. "Nope." They didn't head back to the mansion right away. Logan took them out of town, across back roads only long-time locals would know, ending at a turnout near the river. They stopped beneath a cottonwood tree, whose roots clawed the ground like bones. Gage leapt from the truck and immediately began sniffing the perimeter, circling slowly. Elise watched him, finally speaking after minutes of silence. "I know dogs work in canine units, narcotics, search and rescue, but this one, he doesn't move like he's waiting for command." "He isn't," Logan said. "He's leading." They laid out the files on the truck's tailgate. Elise reviewed them with practiced speed, connecting names, tracing lines between deeds and shell companies. Then Gage barked, not at the woods, not at a stranger. He stood at the back corner of the truck, nose buried beneath the toolbox mounted on the rail. Logan opened it. Tucked between the gear was a sealed envelope he didn't remember placing there. His heart dropped. Inside, a photograph of Gage, taken yesterday. Elise looked over his shoulder. "That's a warning." "No," Logan said, voice low. "That's a message." Gage stared up at him, unreadable, but firm. He didn't need to speak to be understood. They had pushed a little too close. They left the river and drove back toward the mansion in silence. Inside, Logan secured every door, every window. Gage patrolled the perimeter twice. When he returned, he laid at Logan's feet and exhaled. "You sure about this?" Elise asked from the kitchen doorway. Logan looked down at Gage. The dog's ears perked, but he didn't rise. Just watched him, waiting. "We started this together," Logan said. "We're going to finish it." That night, Elise dug deeper, tracing names from the files to recent news. She uncovered new links, veterans' assistance funds rerouted through non-profits, public lands quietly reassigned. Each breadcrumb came with a deeper stench of rot. Gage paced while she worked, occasionally stopping to stare out the window. Each time Logan followed his gaze, he saw nothing. But he trusted the dog more than his own senses. Near midnight, Gage froze beside the kitchen door, nose to the bottom corner. "What is it, boy?" Logan whispered. Gage scratched once, then looked back at him. Logan crouched and saw the faintest glint in the light. thin, clear fishing line strung across the base of the door frame. He cursed softly. Elise's eyes widened. They followed the line to a small device taped beneath the window ledge. Non-lethal, but loud. A distraction trap. Designed to flush someone out, not take them down. Someone had been inside. Recently. Logan disarmed the rig, hands steady, movements methodical. Then he turned to Gage. "You saved us again." The shepherd blinked once, calm and composed. Elise exhaled. "That dog's not just loyal, he's a damn radar." Logan smiled faintly, then said, "He's the reason I'm still alive." They sat together until morning, surrounded by the truth too dangerous to sleep near. And in that quiet, stone-walled house, Gage lay between them, a living line no enemy had yet crossed. It started with a flicker. The kitchen light blinked twice, then went out. The refrigerator hummed, sputtered, and died. A beat later, the house fell into silence. Logan stood still, coffee cup halfway to his lips. The hair on the back of his neck rose. In the living room, Elise looked up from her notes. "That wasn't a breaker," she said quietly. "No," Logan replied. "It wasn't." Gage was already moving. The shepherd padded toward the back door, body low, tail straight. His steps were controlled, every movement like a thread pulled taut. Logan followed, grabbing the flashlight from the shelf and clicking it on. Outside, the wind had picked up again. It rattled the shutters, stirred the dry grass along the edge of the field. But something in the stillness felt manufactured, like silence laid down to cover tracks. Gage moved toward the side of the house where the utility box sat, tucked beneath a rotting overhang. Logan shone the light ahead and crouched. The panel had been pulled open. Wires hung loose, cleanly severed. Gage's nose hovered over them, then dipped to the ground. He sniffed once, then again, then began tracing back toward the trees. Footprints. Someone had been here. Recently. Logan didn't need to see it. He could feel it in Gage's posture. They were being tested. He looked at Elise, who had followed in silence. "Pack your things," he said, "but don't make it obvious." She nodded once and disappeared inside. Back in the house, Logan opened every drawer, checked every latch. He lit 2 oil lamps they had found in the basement, placed one in the kitchen, the other in the main room. Gage lay near the back wall, still on alert. Then the second warning came. Gage lifted his head, sharply, nose in the air. Logan didn't need words. "What is it?" Elise asked, stepping into the room. Gage stood now, stiff, and barked once, quick and sharp, then rushed into the kitchen. Logan followed. Gage skidded to a stop near the stove, paws tense against the tile. And then Logan smelled it. Gas. A faint, acidic scent laced the air, leaking from beneath the old stove's back panel. He moved fast, twisted the shut-off valve under the line, then threw the window open. Elise coughed once, hand over her mouth. "That wasn't an accident," Logan said. Elise didn't argue. She stared at the stove, face pale. "They're not just watching, they're escalating." Logan looked down at Gage, who stood motionless now, eyes fixed on the door. Then he turned back to Elise. "They want us out." The lights, the gas, the envelope with Gage's photo. It was too precise to be random, too careful to be a warning shot. This was methodical, a quiet siege. They spent that night without power, lamps flickering weakly against the stone walls. Gage refused to lie down. He moved between windows, pausing often, ears twitching at every gust of wind, every creak. Outside, nothing stirred. But they all knew better. At 2:13 a.m., the wind shifted. Gage froze mid-step, nose angled toward the far corner of the house. Then came the sound, faint but clear, metal dragging across concrete. Logan grabbed his rifle and stood, moving towards the hallway with Gage just ahead of him. Elise covered the rear, flashlight beam sweeping slow and steady. They reached the back door. The knob was cold to the touch. Locked, but the edge of the door showed marks, thin lines scraped through the paint. Someone had tried it. Recently. Logan locked it again, then blocked it with the dresser they had pulled from the front room. For the rest of the night, they didn't sleep. Gage stayed curled near the door, chin resting on his front paws, but his ears never settled. His body remained poised, ready to rise at the softest sound. In the morning, Logan found the final confirmation. Outside, beneath the kitchen window, were 2 sets of footprints. One was booted, wide steps, heavy. The other was smaller, almost careful. But what caught his eye was the drag mark between them. Something had been carried, or buried. Logan crouched, brushing leaves aside until his fingers struck metal. It was an old tin sign, county issued, scraped clean. The lettering had been scratched out, but enough remained to read 2 words: Survey Office. Elise stood behind him. "That's your father's division." Logan didn't answer. He turned to Gage, who stood near the tree line, tail rigid, head high. "What are you tracking?" Logan asked. Gage moved slowly forward, nose close to the ground. He walked a wide arc, then stopped beside the fence line where the wood post leaned slightly inward. He barked once. Logan joined him. The post had been hollowed. Inside was a folded note. Logan pulled it out, scrawled in uneven handwriting. "You're in his house now. There's no court that can save you." Elise stepped back. "That's Bradley. It has to be." The former mayor hadn't died. He'd hidden, and he'd never stopped pulling strings. Logan looked out across the field, toward the tree line. This was no longer about hidden records or buried history. It was about control. Bradley wanted the house back, not because it was valuable, but because it was dangerous. A vault filled with truths, and they were the only ones who still had the key. Logan looked at Gage, whose eyes met his with quiet resolve. "We don't run," he said. Gage blinked once, agreement. That night they slept in shifts. Every door was double-locked, every window checked. Gage took the front room, where he could see both the field and the road. When Logan awoke at 3:42 a.m., Gage was still there, still watching, and for the first time in a long time, Logan didn't feel alone. By the 4th night without sleep, the house no longer felt like a refuge. It was a cage made of history and stone, every creak of the floorboards echoing louder than the last. The cold had crept back into the walls, into the air, into Logan himself. Elise sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers and evidence, her eyes hollow from reading the same documents over and over, searching for an answer that didn't exist. Gage lay near the front door, head resting on his paws, eyes open and fixed on the darkness outside. He hadn't slept either. Logan stood by the window, staring out at the empty road. The truck sat in the drive, covered in frost. The thought had been whispering to him all day. We could leave, drive until the road ends, let the town swallow its own ghosts. He rubbed his temples, the ache in his skull pulsing like a second heartbeat. Every instinct from the Marines told him to move. When the ground turns hot, you relocate. You survive. But another part of him, quieter and deeper, whispered something else. Don't run. Still, his body had already made the decision. He grabbed his jacket from the hook, keys from the counter. Elise looked up, her voice rough. Where are you going? Nowhere far, he said. I just need to clear my head. She stood. You're not thinking straight, Logan. If you walk out now, you know they'll make sure you don't come back. He didn't answer. He couldn't. The weight of everything, his father's death, the buried files, the silence of a whole town, pressed against his chest until breathing hurt. Gage rose from the floor. The shepherd's body language changed instantly. Tail rigid, ears forward, a wall of quiet defiance. As Logan reached for the door, Gage stepped between him and the exit. No sound, no growl, just a silent stand. "Move," Logan said softly. Gage didn't move. "I said move." Still nothing. Logan tried stepping left. Gage mirrored him. Right, same. The dog's eyes locked on his, unflinching, the same look he had given before every dangerous call overseas. The one that said, "You walk through that door, and I follow you into hell." But this time, it said something else. "Don't do it." Logan's hand dropped from the handle. "You don't understand," he muttered. "I can't keep doing this. They're not going to stop. This isn't a war I can win." Gage tilted his head slightly, but his eyes didn't waver. The silence stretched between them, the kind that cracks something inside a man. Elise stood a few feet behind him, watching, realizing this was no argument between man and dog. It was between a man and his conscience. Logan's voice broke. "He's gone, Gage. My dad's gone. You think dragging this out is going to bring him back? It's not." Gage took a single step forward. "Stop," Logan said. "I mean it." The shepherd stepped closer again, until his chest brushed against Logan's knees. Then, with slow, deliberate movement, he sat down. Not obedience, judgment. Logan's throat tightened. His fingers curled against his sides. "You think if we stay, it changes anything? The mayor's got his claws in everything. Police, courts, maybe even the paper. Elise can't print this without getting shut down." Gage leaned forward, pressing his head gently against Logan's leg. That simple gesture undid everything. Logan sank down beside him, his back to the door. The weight in his chest cracked open, and for the first time since finding the files, he felt something he hadn't let himself feel. Grief. He ran a hand through the thick fur along Gage's neck, the familiar warmth grounding him. "You really think we can finish this, huh?" Gage's tail brushed the floor once, slow. Elise knelt nearby, her voice low. "Maybe it's not about finishing it. Maybe it's about not letting them erase him again." Logan looked at her, then at the photo of his father pinned to the corkboard. The smile in that picture was faint, almost forced, but the eyes were steady, defiant. "He was a good man," Logan said. "He believed in rules, in fairness. I used to think that got him killed." Elise nodded. "Or maybe it's what kept his story alive long enough for you to find it." Logan exhaled slowly, feeling the walls shift from suffocation to something like purpose. He stood, walked to the table, and began sorting the files again. Elise joined him, her hands shaking slightly. Gage stayed near the door, guarding, listening. They worked through the night, cataloguing every page, every photo, cross-referencing names and dates. The deeper they went, the more patterns emerged. Bank transfers tied to construction companies, companies tied to shell accounts, all leading back to one man, Harold Bradley. But then came the last file. A report dated 1 week before Miles Hart's disappearance, signed by H.C. Bradley. It stated, "All relevant documentation has been retrieved and secured at Site B. Operative, assets confirmed cleanup." Site B. Logan's pulse spiked. "There's another location." Elise leaned closer. "Where?" Gage gave a low whine, nose pressed to the edge of the table where the old map lay unfolded. His paw touched the corner, near the printed name of a decommissioned quarry 3 miles east of town. Logan looked down. "That's it. That's where they finished it." He smiled faintly, almost in disbelief. "You just solved it, didn't you?" Gage wagged his tail once barely. Elise reached for her bag. If that quarry's still accessible, it could have the missing records. Or worse. Or both, Logan said. They packed in silence. Before leaving, Logan paused at the door again. Gage stood there, blocking it once more, but this time when Logan met his eyes, there was no defiance, only trust. Logan crouched, placed a hand on his chest. We stay. We finish this. No running. Gage pressed his head into Logan's palm, eyes closing briefly. And for the first time in days, Logan felt still. He looked at Elise. We move at first light. Outside, the wind rose across the fields, carrying the faint scent of winter. The storm hadn't broken yet, but they could feel it coming. Inside the stone house, 3 survivors sat in silence. A soldier, a reporter, and a dog, each of them bound not by blood, but by truth. And though the night felt endless, Logan knew now what his father must have known before him. You can bury evidence, you can bury names, but you can't bury loyalty. The article dropped on a Wednesday morning. Elise hadn't sent it to a local outlet. She went regional, then national. The story broke fast, picked up by wire services and independent media like wildfire through dry grass. The headline was simple but devastating. Buried records, buried men, the land that truth forgot. Inside the piece were photographs, scanned deeds, dated memos, forged signatures. One name appeared over and over, Harold Bradley. Another name, Miles Hart, appeared only once, handwritten on a warning note never meant to be mailed. But what struck readers most wasn't a document. It was a photo. Of Gage. Not posed, not staged. Just a single shot of the dog standing guard beside the hidden filing cabinet, head turned slightly, one ear up, one down, alert, loyal, alive. The caption read, "The dog who wouldn't walk away." By noon, calls flooded the county clerk's office. The sheriff's line went unanswered. By evening, Mayor Bradley had vanished, his house abandoned, his phone disconnected, his bank accounts drained. That night, someone left a shoebox on Logan's porch. Inside were receipts, letters, a dusty surveyor's badge. No note. Then came another. A woman knocked, holding a folder wrapped in plastic. "This was my husband's," she said. "He worked with your father. He was scared. We all were. But if your dog trusts you, maybe I can too." Logan said nothing, just nodded. Gage sat at his side, calm as ever. By the end of the week, the table in the stone house was covered in documents. Some were yellowed, others fresh. All true, and every one of them had waited for the right person, and the right dog, to bring them back to light. The stone house stood quiet under the autumn sun, no longer a place of shadows and silence, but of purpose. Logan had rebuilt it by hand, each crack remortared with patience, each splintered beam replaced with care. But he kept the old wood along the door frame, left the bullet-scarred concrete in the cellar as it was. Some things, he believed, needed to be remembered exactly as they were. Where the filing cabinet once stood, now there were shelves. Dozens. A public archive. The walls were lined with case files, land deeds, taped testimonies, faded photographs, and war medals mailed anonymously by children of men once forgotten. People came quietly, sometimes driving from 2 states over, just to walk down into the basement and see their family's name written in truth again. Gage still lay by the front porch most mornings, his fur now salted white along the muzzle, one ear flopped from age. He didn't bark much anymore. He didn't need to. When people approached the house, they slowed, not out of fear, but out of reverence, as if passing by a sentry who had watched over the soul of the land and refused to let it rot. Kids sat on the steps and asked about the dog. Soldiers came and left medals. A woman once knelt beside him and whispered, My father said a dog like you once saved his life. Guess it wasn't a lie after all. Sometimes, when Logan worked late inside, Gage would hobble to the door, nudge it open, and lie quietly at his feet. Just as he had on the first night, the night Logan nearly gave up. There were no grand speeches, no parades, just slow healing. Story by story, name by name. And one sign, carved by hand and bolted to the gate. Truth doesn't hide forever, and neither do the ones who guard it. At the end of Elisa's final article, beneath a photo of Gage lying under the porch as a child stroked his fur, there was just one line. What's your story with a loyal pet? If this story moved you, or reminded you of your own brave companion, share it. And subscribe to German Shepherd Stories, where loyalty has a voice.